Well, what's up, TC? How you feeling? If we haven't had a chance to meet yet, my name's Justin Chandler. I'm one of the pastors here, and I genuinely mean the question I just asked. How you feeling? Like, how's your weekend going? How's your day going? Feel free to jump into the comments. Let me know some of the things you've celebrated over the last week, and just a genuine expression. How you feeling? I'm really excited about today because we're continuing our series, Lemons into Lemonade. And over the last couple of weeks, we've had a chance to look at the number of ways you and I have been given a lemon in some of these areas of our life and how we've been able to make something really great out of it as we've decided to say yes. We've looked at our problems and how we can break possibilities out of those. We've talked about criticism, family, work, finances, faith, and last week on mental health. And so another area that's been impacted for you and for me are our friendships and relationships with people. And like each topic we've covered, we approach this in a variety of different ways. We're influenced by the friendships and relationships we had coming into it. We're influenced how we've responded to that over the last couple of months. And we're influenced by how we think and feel today. But one of the things I'd love for you, just a question as we're getting started today, another way for you to jump into the comments and for us to connect together is for you to answer this question. How are you connecting with your people? How are you connecting with your people? Whoever you describe as people you're close with, how are you connecting with them? And frankly, I'm curious. I'm interested to hear what you're doing, how you're doing it, where that's happening. All of those are interesting to me. See, one of the recent additions to my life has been this video messaging app called Marco Polo. It's something that came out a number of years ago, and essentially what it is it's a walkie-talkie style of shooting videos. And so you can do that with one person, that you could have videos that go back and forth, or you could create group video messages. Now, if you don't like group text messaging, this is the bigger brother of that. And so what happened a few months ago is a college friend of mine discovered it and decided to invite all of this friend group together, and we would be on this app with each other. And so what's intriguing to me is my wife had actually used this app before. She had found it in 2017 and was connecting with some friends there. And to be honest, because honesty is good right now, I would tease her a little bit. I just thought it was funny to record video messages of you talking and having your friend respond to that. And it's one of those moments where what goes around comes back around. And so my friends and I, we started using this app together, and what we would do is just share about life and what's happening and what's going on with our kids, our wives, our jobs. And we've just seen it shift into this way that you can almost expect the same thing every day. You've got drive time or the morning news with Steve. You got to drive with Dr. Wells. My friend Phil is obsessed with his grass and trying to get his front yard and his backyard to look good. He checks pH balance and the type of grass that he's planting. My friend Dustin makes fun of Phil because he's convinced that his yard looks better. And every morning, I'll have a chance to walk around, to take my kids on a walk, and we're responding to these video messages back and forth with each other. And what could be true is I could have an afternoon or a day where I haven't been paying attention to it, and then randomly I'll log on and there's 40 video messages I have to plow through. And so one night, while Rachel was out, while the boys were asleep, I decided I was going to pay them back a little bit. And so I decided to do really quick scene-by-scene commentary of Jaws 2, which I consider to be the best Jaws movie, closely matched with Jaws 3D. And so I just gave them this kind of shot-by-shot, here's the things that are happening. And my friends and I, as we're in different time zones, as we have different jobs, as our family life looks a little different, as our kids are returning to school and that looks different, over and over and over again, each one of us has said at a different time as we've been using this, each one of us has said, and I'm so glad we did this. And this is something that's been missing in my life, and I'm so glad that we're back. I'm so glad our friendship is together. And so as you are considering, how are you connecting with your people? I would genuinely love to hear, how is that happening for you? And if I could only speak from my perspective, this has been something that's been true for Rachel and I. As we've had friends that we were connected with here, we had to make a lot of the decisions that you had to make. We decided to pivot to an online format and to meet with our friends through video. And initially, as it began, it was fun. It was a novel way to do it. It was oh, hey, everybody's here, woo. But a lot of the conversation was, oh, I don't like this. It's kind of lame. This will be over soon. We'll be able to keep going through it. And as that couple-week period turned into a couple months, has turned into most of this year, each one of us has expressed the same thing. I'm so over it. I'm so ready for this to be finished. I don't want to do it anymore. And maybe that feeling's been true for you. And that as some of the guidelines and restrictions have changed, there were opportunities where people would invite groups of friends and they'd say, hey, do you guys want to go meet at the beach together? And we'd go there. And we received the same kind of feedback that potentially you received. We had friends of ours that said, you're going outside and you're going to decide to wear a mask? Like, I don't want to be a part of that. Or we'd have friends of ours that would say, if everyone is not physically distancing and wearing a mask, then we're not coming. We've received the same thing that you have. And see, it seems like no matter what decision Rachel and I made, it wasn't the right one. And no matter what ended up happening, it wasn't satisfying the need or the longing that we had to connect with people. And so as we approach this topic of friendships and relationships, you and I are coming from a really similar spot. We're weary. Like, this has just been a lot. We've been given a lemon. And yet there's this desire and longing that's true for every one of us. See, from the very beginning of the history of humanity, what we've seen is that people have grouped together. That never has humanity done well in isolation. And so groups of people have found themselves getting together in all of recorded human history. And what I also find incredible is that the Bible speaks to this very same thing as well. It speaks to the desire that you and I have, but it also speaks to the weariness, the frustration, and the way that we've been given a lemon. It speaks to that also. And so here's what I'd love for you to do. If you have a Bible, you can open up to Proverbs chapter 27. We're going to be in verse 7. If you don't have a Bible, here's what I'd encourage you to do. You can download our app. It's the Crossing CM. It's available on the App Store, on Google Play. It's free. And as you download that app and push the home button, there's a little way that you can scroll down and click notes. Everything that I share today during the message time will be available there that you can follow along and reference with me. And so as you're doing that, what I'd love to do is just talk about this book of Proverbs. Maybe you've heard about it before, but here's what's really remarkable about it. Regardless of your view of faith, Jesus, church, or the Bible, the book of Proverbs is considered inside of church and outside of religion to be one of the greatest wisdom books ever composed. And King Solomon, the author who published this work, he's considered one of the wisest men who's ever lived. And so what happens as you read it is you'll find the book of Proverbs will kind of go chapter to chapter, and it may have a wide variety of topics in one chapter, or it may focus on a single one. It may feel like it's switching from one topic to another by verse, or it may feel like there's these sections. It really zeroes in on a very specific thing. And what I'm excited about today is we're going to have a chance to look at a section of Proverbs that speaks about friendships and relationships. And what Solomon, this author, is going to do is he's going to use a lot of visual metaphors. So he's going to kind of paint a picture for us. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow the truth of what he's sharing to resonate in a different way, because that picture will capture our heart much more than the truth would if it stood on its own. And so we're going to begin in verse number 7. Proverbs chapter 27, verse 7. Here's what it says. One who is full loathes honey from the comb, but to the hungry, even what is bitter tastes sweet. We'll read it one more time. One who is full loathes honey from the comb, but to the hungry, even what is bitter tastes sweet. And I know it's a few months away, but every one of us has been Thanksgiving full. And what I mean by that is you had enough to eat, you were full, but then you decided to eat some more. And then you were full, right? And you might have even had more on top of that. So you've arrived at Thanksgiving full. And then there came this moment where you were presented with the opportunity to eat something that you've been looking forward to for a long time. It could have been a dessert or something that happens in the evening, but this thing you've been looking forward to, you had the chance to have. And every one of us has experienced this when we're Thanksgiving full. We're so full that even this really good thing that we're having, it just doesn't taste as great as it would if it was on its own. We're too full to appreciate how good this thing is. And equally true, each one of us has been so hungry that it doesn't matter what we eat, that thing is one of the most delicious things that we've ever had, because our body's just crying out for something to have. And I'm really excited through this stay-at-home period because I've arrived at an expert level of parenting. See, I can make 2 boxes of Kraft macaroni and cheese and not have to measure the milk or the butter. I know, it's a remarkable thing. And you may have a lot of feelings about the blue box, but here's the thing that's true. There has been a point in your life where you've eaten Kraft macaroni and cheese and you've thought, whoa, this is delicious, right? That's true when we're hungry. See, what Proverbs starts to set up when it talks about friendship is it positions friendship a lot like an appetite. It positions friendship like hunger, because there's this thing inside of us that needs to get full. And our relationships and connections with people, that happens as we're connected with others. And when you think of how most of us are processing friendships and relationships right now, this speaks to us in a really powerful way. See, some of you are full, you're over it. The idea of meeting with people on screens is driving you crazy. Zoom fatigue doesn't matter anymore. Zoom weariness doesn't matter. You are zoomed out and you're ready for it to be done. You just want to move on. You're so full, you can't even appreciate the sweet thing that it is. And there's some of you who are hungry. There's some of you that you would just love to do anything right now just to be around other people. Like I've said to friends of mine, I think if I got together and said, hey, you guys, we're going to get in a circle and we're going to kick rocks, that I'd have to set up an RSVP system just to make sure we don't max out at all. Like that's where some of us are. See, that hunger, it's speaking to this appetite that lies inside of us. That hunger, as it's appealing to us, is saying there's something that you desire and it needs to be filled. But the book of Proverbs, as it says to us, is there these moments in our lives where even the sweetest thing isn't sweet because we're full. And then there's these moments in our lives where anything will taste sweet because we're hungry. Here's how it continues in verse number 8. It says, like a bird that flees its nest is anyone who flees from home. Again, I'll read it one more time. Like a bird that flees its nest is anyone who flees from home. And initially you could read this verse and think it's about teenagers, right? It's something you want to post on their door that as they're getting ready to go out for the night and hang out with friends that you would say, like a bird that flees the nest is anyone that leaves from home. Like it's a warning for them to, be responsible, to make wise choices, to remember whose they are. Like you could approach it like that. And yet what this verse is saying, the way that it's connecting is that verse 7 is speaking to a hunger and a desire. Verse number 8 is speaking to us of a danger. And the picture he starts to create is like this. Imagine there's a bird that's just flying around and everything is fine, everything's going well, but all of a sudden danger approaches. It could be from a storm, it could be from a predator, it could be from any number of things. And that bird is now flapping like crazy to find a place to hide, to find a place to go, to find a place to call home, and yet there's nowhere that it could find. And maybe that feels true for you. Maybe as you just process how life has been happening, maybe you feel like the bird that's just flapping its wings like crazy and just trying to stay alive. You're just trying to make it from today to tomorrow. And maybe that's part of the reason why you tuned in today. Maybe part of the reason why you're here is you're like, I don't know where else to go. I don't know what else to do, but I decided I'm just going to try church. And here's one of the reasons why I'm excited. I'm excited you tuned in today because as we get to the end of our service, we're going to have some next steps for you that'll help that very thing that you're looking for, that we'll find that place for you. But maybe it's not that for you. Like maybe you're not the person who feels like you're flapping your wings and you're going crazy. It could be this. Maybe you feel like the person who's moving on from friend to friend, from best friend to best friend, from friend group to friend group over and over and over. It's happening so frequently, it's kind of like how you change the oil in your car. And I have a friend of mine who I'm really close with. There's someone I care a lot about. And it seems like every time we talk, they have a new best friend. There's someone else that they're spending a lot of time with, that they're going out and doing other things. And so one of the ways that I find just really intriguing, and some of the times I ask is like, well, what happened to this other person? This other person who is your best friend. And they're no longer on the radar anymore. They're no longer a topic of conversation. It's not that they're no longer a best friend. They're not even a friend anymore. And as we continue that conversation, it seems like each time this friend transition happens, this person was confronted in a way. They had to bring some kind of feedback, some kind of advice. And when this friend did it, this best friend brought them advice. It drove a wedge in the relationship because they didn't want to hear it anymore. And so rather than hearing and receiving that advice, they moved on to somebody else. And the truth for you and for me is we don't need to find more people to tell us how awesome we are. And we need the kind of people who are going to give us that kind of advice. We need that place to find home, not to be bouncing from one to the other. Like it takes a great deal to be able to share that level of feedback. In fact, just a couple of verses before we started, in verse number 6, here's what Proverbs 27 says. It says, the wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses. Wounds from a friend can be trusted. Man, it takes a lot of trust to be able to provide someone with that. It takes a lot of trust to sit down and say, hey, I know what I'm going to say is going to hurt you, but I feel like you need to hear it. And as your friend, I feel responsible to share it with you, to share it for your good, to share it in hopes that this would improve something for you. I mean, this is something that Andrew shared just a little bit earlier in our series that you could jump onto our website and you could find a little bit more about. See, if we're not careful, you and I, we're going to find ourselves in the very same circumstances, moving on to another kind of friend, bouncing to another person and to another person and to another person. And like the bird that flees its nest is the person who's unable to find home, the person who can't find a place to lay their head. If it was true for the birds, and if it speaks to the danger in that way, man, it's true for you and for me and the danger that we face emotionally if we're not able to engage in relationships, to find a place where we feel safe and trusted and vulnerable. And this is how the book of Proverbs continues. In verse number 9, it says this: perfume and incense bring joy to the heart, and the pleasantness of a friend springs from their heartfelt advice. Perfume and incense bring joy to the heart, and pleasantness of a friend springs from their heartfelt advice. See, one of the things I know in the 11 years that I've been married is I know the kind of perfumes and scents that my wife has. She likes to wear Tommy Girl Deep Red by Hugo Boss, Bombshell by Victoria's Secret, and Euphoria by Calvin Klein. And I know that this is a weird question to ask. I know it's a weird thing to say, and you may feel like it's a weird one. But here's what I think is just a great connection opportunity too, because we all go to the same shopping aisles. What's your scent? It could be the deodorant you like, the perfume or cologne you prefer, but what's your scent? And here's my way of being vulnerable. This is going to be my moment where I say it out loud, just so you could know. I, for as long as I can remember, have worn Pure Sport deodorant by Old Spice, and I've worn Very Sexy cologne by Victoria's Secret. You heard that right. And so I'm sharing it so you can share yours too, I promise. Just a couple of months ago, a friend of mine was watching the ESPN documentary about Michael Jordan. And as he was cleaning out his closet at his house during his week, he sent this picture. And here's what he posted. He's like, cleaning out the closet, and I found the perfect item for tonight's finale of The Last Dance. The dog and the kids won't come near me. My wife thinks I smell like I took a bath in Axe body spray mixed with Raid. If you've ever worn Michael Jordan cologne, it's time for you to jump into the comments too. And see, each one of these scents, each one of these moments with my wife, it reminds me of the special memories she and I have shared in our marriage, in our dating relationship. And so even just the smell of it brings me back to those moments, and it brings me joy. I mean, the kind of joy that little guy you saw making lemonade before we got started today, that's my youngest son, Cohen. And here's some joy. He's going to be a big brother in February. And that's something our family is so excited about. And yet every time I get around my wife, every time I'm with her, I can smell those smells, and it just brings back all kinds of memories. But maybe it's not perfume or cologne that does it for you. Maybe it's the smell of food. Maybe there's certain places that bring back those kind of memories. So I'll ask the very same question. What food smell brings you joy? Like what and where? That smell of that thing just brings back all kinds of memories. It could be the restaurant you walk into and you could smell your favorite dish being prepared. It could be when you go back home and your mom or your dad is making that dish you grew up and you love with all of your heart, right? See, that what the Bible starts to do here is to say this same feeling that as you smell this thing and it brings you joy and it brings you back memories is the very same feeling in regards to relationships. The smell I have, that if I smell my wife, or if I smell when I walk into Taco Nazo in Bellflower and I smell the Baja style fish tacos that they prepare, that thing brings me joy. And see, one of the things that we see when heartfelt advice, it's an important point to clarify. See, this isn't the kind of advice that you get from someone you don't know or from a stranger. It's not the kind of advice, the unsolicited feedback we're not asking for. It's the kind of advice that someone you know and trust says to you, hey, I got something we need to talk about. And they've prepared. They've thought through what they're going to say. They've thought through how they're going to say it, the tone in which they're going to use. They're prepared to say something that they know is going to matter to you, right? And that you could trust them with that. And you can tell a lot about the relationships we have and the vitality we have about it based on the way you feel about that person's name being mentioned, the way in which you've trusted them. So if you imagine that you're going to this place and you hear that this person's going to be there, right? When that starts to bring you joy because you remember the memories, you remember the advice, you remember the ways in which you've trusted them and they've come through with you. This is the image that this verse in Proverbs is trying to convey for us in regards to our friendships and the heartfelt advice we pursue. See, it's the very thing that bird that's flying away and can't find home, the person who's fleeing from the wounds of a friend, the very thing that they're desiring, they're running away from. They can't seem to find. And what they need, they can't ever seem to stay still long enough to be able to hear. And you may be watching right now, and you may be saying, like, I wish I had a friend like that. Like, I wish there was someone in my life who could do the same. Here's what I'm really excited about. Just like I said a little bit earlier, as you stick around to the end today, we have some really exciting next steps that are going to help you find that very same thing that you're pursuing. Which leads us to our last verse in this section of Proverbs. Here's what it says in verse 10. It says, do not forsake your friend or a friend of your family, and do not go to your relative's house when disaster strikes you. Better a neighbor nearby than a relative far away. I'll read it one more time for you. Do not forsake your friend or a friend of your family, and do not go to your relative's house when disaster strikes you. Better a neighbor nearby than a relative far away. And as was true just a couple of verses ago, one of the things that you could think as you read this is like, what's the Bible got against family? Like, what's the issue? Why would they try to say, get away from family? And yet what the book of Proverbs is speaking to is something that's true for a lot of us right now. We live in one of the most mobile parts of our entire country and all of the world. Whether it's someone moving in and out of the state, someone moving from city to city in search of cheaper housing, a better education for their kids, a shorter commute to work. We live in a spot where people are moving all the time. And maybe you're one of those people who have moved, that it feels like family's really far away. And yes, they're a phone call away, but they're really far in terms of being able to be near. Or it could be that you're living in the very spot that your family's grown up in. You've stayed here your entire lives. And here's what every one of us would agree to. And if you've got family that you could call and they could be where you are in just moments, man, that's an incredible blessing on your life. But most of us don't have that. And so what the Bible says is it's better to have a friend that's close by than to have to run somewhere else, to go to the other side of the country to be near family. And so even though we find ourselves in these moments where we're hungry, we find ourselves in these moments where we have a desire and an appetite, right? When we have this family member, this friend who's close to us, man, that speaks something to our lives. And even though a lot of us, of how we've arrived to where we are today, it's different, and most of us are wishing that life could be different, that what we're going through right now could be different. And here's what's true. It can be. See, as we approach today, man, we're all on a level playing field. Some of you are coming in today hungry, and some of you are coming in today full. Some of you are bouncing around from place to place, and some of you have found home. Some of you are in search for the joy that comes for heartfelt advice. Some of you continue to receive it. And each of us is better off when we've got our people close by to us. In just a few weeks, we're going to start a brand new semester for groups, ways for men, women, and couples here at the Crossing to connect with one another. We've got some incredible content, some resources that are going to be coming your way that I know are going to help you grow. I know they're going to help you explore, but they're going to really help you connect with other people as we provide opportunities to talk through life. And one of the things that I know is that when I say, hey, our groups are going to be meeting online through Zoom, some of you are going to say, I'm done. I don't want to. I've had enough. I'm full. And you're going to say, no. And it's one of those moments where even the sweetest thing can lose its sweetness because of how full we are. And I'm going to be honest with you. I've been right there with you. I've felt all of the same feelings. But as we prepare for groups to return the week of September 14th, I got to tell you, I'm really excited for them to be back. And one of the reasons that I'm excited is one of my favorite moments was on Wednesday nights. We created a large group gathering where as many people as wanted to could get together, and to be able to scan through the hundreds of little rectangles that represent a person or a couple as they're jumping online to connect with other people. It was one of those times that really felt like us gathering here together. It gave me the sense that, man, we really are all in this together. And look at us, we're all in the same call together. Like, that's where I felt most connected. And then to have the opportunity to take that really big gathering and to put it into small groups so that people could connect together. And to know that there's not a person on that call who doesn't wish it could be different, who doesn't wish that we could meet in person, who's just saying, man, I want us to get back to normal. Until that's possible, here's what we get to do. We get to take this lemon that we've been given, and we get to make some really great lemonade. See, this next semester of groups is going to do just that. And I don't want you to miss it. And while I hope that every one of you who's viewing today is going to say yes, that you'll jump into a group, I'll help you to be able to connect to it. Here's what I also know. There's some of you who are watching today, and where some of what I was saying today may connect to where you're at in relationships, man, it's hitting where you're at in your soul. Like you really were just flapping around and you found this place because you're searching for a home. See, it wasn't just true there. It's deep inside of your gut. And just as that section of Proverbs spoke to relationships, there's another section that speaks to friendships and our relationship to God. And here's what it says. Proverbs 18:24. One who has unreliable friends soon comes to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. There's a friend who sticks closer than a brother. See, this verse has been used almost exclusively to talk about Jesus and his relationship to us. And that though he was God, he put himself here on the earth for you and for me. And that he sticks with us through all the ups, through all the downs, and for all the things that Jesus could call us, for all the ways that he could refer to us. John 15:15, from Jesus' own mouth, here's what he says. I have called you friends. Jesus calls us his friend. And the reliability of our relationships is going to show how vital our life is. That if we're missing out on that, we're going to miss out on a lot. And this truth comes true in our relationship with Jesus, that Jesus is going to stick with us when it feels like everybody is gone. No matter where we move, no matter where we go, Jesus is with you and is inviting each one of us to step into relationship with him. And just as our church has been helping people say yes for 31 years, I want to invite you to say yes in one of three ways today. For those of you who are jumping in online and your yes would be to that relationship with Jesus, either for the first time or the last, or starting up again, I want to invite you to be able to do that. For some of you, you may be here and you may be saying, Justin, I'm full. I'm so over this season right now. I'm so ready for it to be done. We're going to invite you to say, yes, that's true for me in just a moment. Or maybe you're hungry today and you're just saying, I need something in my life. I already can feel my soul responding that way. We're going to have a chance for you to do just that. And so here's what I'm going to invite you to do. It's going to happen in the comments right now. That if you want to say yes to Jesus, to a relationship with Jesus, either for the first time or you're starting it up new, could you just do me a favor? In the comments right now, could you just type the number 1 or Jesus? I will follow up with you right after this, but if you type 1 or Jesus, if that's true for you today, that's a way for you to be able to say yes. If you're saying you're full, like you've just had enough, you're ready for this to be over, you're done, but you're saying like, hey, I want to say yes to that right now. If you could just do this, type the number 2 or say full. You can just type that in the comments and we'll be able to follow up there. And if you're hungry today, all you got to do is type the number 3 or type hungry in the comments, and it's a way for you to say yes. And so as you're typing in your number, however you're saying yes today in the comments, I want to invite you to pray with me, and then we're going to have a chance to respond and sing together. So let's pray. Jesus, I'm so grateful for today. And so I'm so grateful, God, that you stick closer to us than a brother. You're close, God, when it feels like we're so far off. You're near us, God, when it feels like we don't have a place to call home. And God, there's some who have said yes to that relationship today. And so God, I pray that they would feel your closeness. God, I pray that they would feel how you're sticking with them no matter what's happening in their life today, God. And I would pray that they would feel all the love of heaven that Jesus brought you here on the earth, that you would look to them today and call them a friend. God, for those who are full and have just had enough of all the things that have been happening and the way that life is right now, God, I pray that you would bring back the sweet taste of really sweet things in life to them. That even if it looks different, God, we could take this lemon and we can make lemonade of it. God, you make incredibly sweet things from those moments, and I pray that that would be true for them. And for God, those who are hungry, for those who are longing and have this appetite and desire that hasn't been filled yet, God, I pray that they would see the way in which you're inviting them to say yes to that and how, God, you're going to bring that to them as they do. And it's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen. In the next portion of our service, our creative arts team has a song that they're going to sing called Graves and Gardens. And it's literally the perfect lemons and the lemonade song. Because in a portion of this, you're going to hear the way that this song says, God takes graves and he turns them into gardens. He takes bones and turns them into armies. He takes seas and turns them into highways. He takes mourning and turns it into dancing. He takes ashes and turns it into beauty. And here's the thing that you could do. Whatever you're experiencing in your life, whatever you're feeling in your life, whatever lemon you feel like you've been dealt, you can take that, and as you sing and respond, you can give that to God and watch him do something incredibly beautiful with it. So sing and respond with us. Enjoy.